Good morning, everyone, and welcome again to the Mine RP podcast, the podcast where we discuss all things mining and all things digital and the confluence of those two rivers. And we're always excited to welcome new guests to our podcast, and today will be no exception, as we also welcome you as the listeners, of course. Thank you for making the time to listen to the Mine RP podcast, and remember to like and share and tell everyone else about it. As I said, today we've got a very exciting guest, exciting for us, as I'm sure he will be for you, Andrew Lane. Andrew is a senior partner at Deloitte Africa, where he leads the energy, resources and industrials practice, as well as the Monitor Deloitte strategy capability and the CEO program at the Deloitte Executive Institute. Certainly a person to reckon with. And not only in Deloitte, but his professional career spans 32 years, including 18 years in consulting. He leads the strategy and operational improvement, organizational redesign and implementation projects with various industries, which includes mining, of course, utilities, revenue collection. I wish he wouldn't do that. General industry, aviation, manufacturing. That was okay. Then we'll forgive you for that. And even in media. So, Andrew, it's a pleasure to have you with us. You know, every year at Mining in Dalba, I see you introducing the Deloitte Mining Report and others, and I see how you are such a well-known person in the industry. So for the Mine War podcast and for our listeners, it's great to have you with us as well.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure.
So I've told the listeners a little bit about you, your background professionally, but other than being a South African, for whom it is almost impossible to avoid the mining industry, tell us a little bit, if you don't mind, about how you got involved in the mining industry in general, and how did you get into mining?
So it's an interesting story. I mean, it was certainly not by design, and actually, it does have something to do with being South African. I was working many years ago, probably about 20 years ago, with one of our competitor consulting firms in our London office. My first mining project was in the UK. And it was one of those situations where, you come from South Africa, you must know something about mining.
Yeah.
And I was sent up to Doncaster to work on UK coal. And,
Wow.
and kind of one thing led to another. I've never explicitly chosen to focus on mining, but you end up, you do a project, so you learn something. And because you've learned something, you get another project and you meet a few more people and you learn something else. And so you go, and almost just by accident, I've ended up doing most of my work in mining. It was a remarkable coincidence.
And was it a surprise to you to find that you were at home in mining?
I've always enjoyed working in industry and where real people do real work.
Yeah.
So I like to go to mines. I like to go to factories. I like to go to places where things happen. So I guess I've always been comfortable in an environment where you get to kind of go underground and sort of see what people do and play with the clever toys and all that kind of stuff.
When we did the planning for this podcast, John and John, I just realized I forgot to say hi to you as well, of course, as the host, and I'm the co-host of the of the Mine RP podcast. But John has always said, no, we've got to get Andrew on, because do you know that he's got a history at Mine RP? So John, why don't you take that and run with that a little bit?
Yeah, so I know what the history is. Hello to the listeners. This is Jean who's speaking. I'm not sure that we've compared our notes yet around this, Andrew. So you tell your story first. Let me lead in by saying that I think that you are the one. Yeah, the first one. There was somebody before you that's not with Deloitte anymore, but that never got off the ground, a UK-based chap that you also referenced. How did Deloitte South Africa get in touch of Mine RP? And what was your role?
So I think you, John, had spoken to a colleague of mine, John Woods, who was in Zambia at the time, a UK colleague.
I was on a conference with him in Germany.
Yeah. When we first started out down our sort of innovation and digital journey in mining at Deloitte, I was having a cup of tea with our mutual friend Chris Shepherd, who was at Anglo Gold Ashanti in those days.
That's right.
And I said to him, wouldn't it be great if, and we were talking about digital twins and all that sort of stuff, wouldn't it be great if you could replan a long-term plan in real time? And he just said, you must talk to Peter Nell at MineRP. So Peter and I had a meeting, and that led to another meeting, and then more people got involved, and Reno got involved. I think you guys got involved, and it just sort of happened from there. So I do like to think that I was there sort of at the beginning of this relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. So MP, on this podcast, then whatever the number is formally, we allocate the number one to Andrew. There can only be one number one. Thank you very much, Andrew. It's been a fantastic journey with Deloitte so far.
Well, I'm
Then,
glad it's gone so well. I mean, I think it's been a fantastic journey.
yeah. Then when we decided to talk to you, I thought, what are we going to talk to Andrew about? I mean, he's so senior. He talks to CEOs of mines. What can we possibly talk to you out from a podcast? So then I thought, let me look at your LinkedIn profile. And I've got a new rule, which I will apply to people that we interview. I look at your last 4 posts or your likes or whatever activity that you have in LinkedIn. In your case, it worked. I had to go look at my last 4 as well. And in that case, it didn't work. So I'll be watching my last 4. And this was what you posted your last 4. And then the question is this sort of the focus areas, the things that get you to get up in the morning and delight your customers? And they are in this order. Building trust requires leaders to act on a daily conscious choices. Secondly, you commented on Deloitte's insights. You said, and this was an article about the value of resilient leadership, which also is about trust. Then energy scenarios in focus, and then achieving net zero emissions at Deloitte in 2030. Is that a representation of what switches Andrew on?
I think it's a representation of what I think is topical at the moment. Yeah, it's interesting. Just on the LinkedIn thing, I've been over the years, I've been particularly unattentive to LinkedIn, and then our marketing people came to me and said, Andrew, you really should start doing something on LinkedIn. And by the way, please update your photograph. I said, well, what's wrong with your photograph? She said, well, it looks like you're 23. I said, well, I am 23. But anyway, so, I mean, just on a serious note, I think that these 4 things that I liked on LinkedIn are a function, I think, of where we are as a world right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think the resilient leadership and building trust, I think that has really come to the forefront through the whole COVID thing. I think if you cast your mind back to the early days of lockdown back in April, it was very uncertain times. Businesses were closed down. In fact, if you remember, the mining industry closed down for a few weeks, and that was it took a few weeks to negotiate to get them opened up again. So it was very uncertain times. Nobody really knew how things were going to work out economically, and I really do think that was the time for leadership to step up and lead from the front, particularly in a virtual world where you can't get out in front of your people. So it really did. I think this whole issue of leadership and building trust did come to the fore in COVID. And then the energy scenarios and net zero emissions. If I reflect on, I mean, you mentioned our Deloitte Tracking the Trends report, which we publish every year. The one thing which rocketed to the top of our trends in this last year was decarbonization.
Wow.
I moderated a panel at the Ministerial Symposium at Mining in Durban, and it so happened I had the same 4 CEOs on the panel as I had the previous year.
Wow.
And I said to them, so guys, what has changed from last year to this year? And one of them piped up. He just said, Greta Thunberg. So decarbonization and climate change, I think, is right at the top of the agenda right now.
Cool. Didn't realize.
Yeah. And certainly we're driving a bit of a campaign around that in Deloitte as well.
Yeah. Andrew, then in our preparation, I asked you, so what are the things that you're focusing on and that, that you are driving forward in Deloitte and with your clients, and you gave me 5 things from, from, like you mentioned now, there's massive change still heading our way in uncertainty, all the way to authentic and purpose-driven leadership. Could you take us through those 5 things that that we spoke about?
We are living in times of massive change and uncertainty. I think that one of the things COVID has taught us is you've got to plan for the unlikely. Previously, it was okay to plan for like a most likely future, plus or minus a bit. Now, I think uncertainty really has come to roost, and it's become apparent that you have to plan for what's not likely to happen as well.
Wow.
So I think we are doing more and more work around, helping clients plan for uncertainty, using scenarios to test robustness of strategic choices, things like that. The other one I spoke about, I mean, you'll see sort of some of these points come through multiple times. Doing the right thing, trust and resilience, authentic and purpose-driven leadership are the points I spoke about a few minutes ago. I think that society or business has realized that it does have a role in society globally, and particularly the extractive industries, where we make the initial impact is a negative one, environmental and social, and we really do have a role in society, and particularly extractive industries where governments of resource-rich countries expect that their resource endowment would be for the benefit of their people and their country. So there is a real expectation that we fulfill our role in society beyond just delivering profit to shareholders. And we're doing a lot more work around this. It's what we call sort of value beyond compliance. If you think about all of the things we have to spend money on to comply, and things like the mining charter and scorecards and stuff like that. And I think there's tremendous value to be had if you look at that slightly differently, and look at those investments from an investment point of view, and see them as an investment into a system of which you're also a beneficiary, as opposed to just a cost of compliance. So I think, I don't know, that kind of, those are some of the things that are top of mind for me right now.
If I can maybe quickly just jump in there, I see you talk about these challenges, but there seems to have been a tension between countries and mining companies, I should say governments and mining companies, that is being sorted out by a focus on sustainability and a focus on communities and so on. Do you think that tension is improving at all? Are we making progress with the relationships between governments and companies?
Look, it's a mixed bag. Certainly in this country, it's improved significantly. I think it's no secret that the new minister runs a different ship to the previous minister, and that at least the quality of the dialogue has improved, and at least there's some sort of mutual understanding about how the economics of the industry works. So I do think it has improved, and I do think that in the main, the mining industry is trying to do the right thing, and I think where you do the right thing, you come to the table with a lot more credibility, and you have a more productive discussion. If you're chancing your arm and cutting corners and doing the wrong thing, then you find that there's not much trust around the table when you come to the table. But it's not consistent. I don't think any government has really cracked the code of how to regulate this industry. A place like Zambia, for instance, which has kind of chopped and changed their mining regulations on an ongoing basis, and it does spook investors when governments appear to act unilaterally and sometimes in a way that's not expected.
It's these wild swings. It's completely to the left and completely to the right. And what comes to mind is a recent win by Biden, and what those that are only there for shareholder value says, oh, this is going to be the end of life as we know it. Economy is going to stop worldwide, and now we're going to see socialist policies, and then you see the reverse of that. So Yeah, I'm not going to ask you to comment if you don't want to. I think this is a hot potato.
Well, it's actually been quite interesting because I was having a conversation with one of my global colleagues the other day around our future of energy scenarios. And it was literally as we were watching the final vote count towards the end of last week. And it does, I mean, if you think about it from a future of energy point of view, the US election outcome does make a difference in terms of that continent's stand on climate change, and also
Yes.
in terms of global cohesiveness and the ability of nations to work collaboratively together. Um, I think the previous president did quite a great job of dividing his country and dividing the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe this new administration will bring things back together again a little bit.
Yeah. The last question on this, and the work that you specifically are driving with the CEOs, etc. Where would you rate South Africa in terms of potential to improve? On a scale of X, or are we busy getting there? Are we only starting?
Look, there's definitely potential to improve, because when you're where we are, it can only get better. So you know what, for me, the jury's out on this country. I think we are getting onto the right track. Is it too little, too late? I don't know. Can we sustain it? I don't know. One of the problems with politics is the electoral cycle and the commodity cycle don't necessarily line up with each other. So who knows how things are going to go? But I certainly think that the outlook is a lot brighter now than it was a little while ago.
Okay.
That is kind of a segue into something else I wanted to talk to you about, and that is you mentioned that you were kind of tapped as an expert on mining just because you came out of South Africa. But that is kind of true. That's South Africa, and Africa for that matter, has got a lot of experience and a lot of technology and a lot of knowledge that can be and should be applied in the rest of the world of mining. Competencies that are actually driven from Africa. Do you feel that Deloitte, South Africa, and then specifically, or generally, I should say, the mining industry out of South Africa still has a voice at the table and can still have a leading opinion?
Well, look, I mean, if you think about South Africans' contribution to mining, there are South Africans all over the world in the mining industry. If I look at our Deloitte mining practice, and I go to our other centers of excellence, being Australia, Canada, and the UK, they're full of South Africans. And you get all these people with Canadian accents and Afrikaans names. So there's no doubt that South Africans continue to make an impact on the mining industry worldwide.
And I think I listened to certainly those accents that you mentioned, but also just the very unique problems that we have here in South Africa with regards to very deep mines and highly labor-intensive mines, and some of the organizational leadership models that emerge out of South Africa. It's great to see people that are leading in other countries, but it's also necessary to, I think, to just go back to our roots a little bit here and to see how much competency we still have here, and if that is really applied and combined with the resource riches that we have, that's got to bode well for the industry if we can get the political leadership to, or rather, if they can focus in the right place, there's got to be hope still.
Yeah, look, I think there's got to be hope. And I think there are an enormous amount of South Africans around the world that would come back if the outlook improved. And don't underestimate that. People talk about regulatory certainty. There's more to that than just the fact that the regulations don't change. It's what our politicians say and what our leaders say that investors look at. And they're very aware that, we're only a few years from the next election. And will what we say now be consistent in a few years' time? I don't think we've yet landed on a kind of single sort of cohesive view of how to manage the economy run the country going forward. So there's still uncertainty there.
One of the things that we, from a minor P perspective, enjoy when we work with Deloitte is the fact that we're working with a company that has an opinion and a vision of its own for mining here, but globally as well. We obviously, like you, deal with many partners, and these partnerships only become really value adding when we have partners that have their own strategies that we can kind of latch onto, from both sides, and then 1 + 1 makes 3. So these competencies that we see within your centers of excellence are so well aligned with ours that from a minor P perspective, the vision that Deloitte has. I mean, you were speaking about value beyond compliance, and there's a variety of other things, even other partners that you bring to the table that as an ecosystem delivers value that is just way beyond what any single company could come up with by themselves.
I mean, I think that's one of the things that we've done quite well as a firm is the ecosystem thing. I think we've managed to figure out how to work with a very wide ecosystem of best of breed partners. Yes. And I think our intelligent mining sort of suite of services where we partner with you guys amongst others is a great example of that. But we work on a global basis with SAP, Google, Amazon, all of the famous names, and I think we're extraordinarily well positioned as a global partner to those organizations. We're sort of north of a $46 billion business now globally. I mean, it's not a small business, and so we do have permission to play with some of those big guys.
Andrew, we need to bring this to a close. Some final thoughts on lenses or focus areas for the mining executives listening into this podcast to plot the next 30 years.
I think there are a couple of things, and I think we've spoken about a few of them. I would keep an eye on climate change and decarbonization. I'd keep an eye on the value beyond compliance, the social investor role in society. I'd keep an eye on tech and digital, and actually maybe most importantly out of all of those is the future of work. As we modernize and as the world changes and as we disrupt of workers and workplace, how you configure work and how you kind of get the right people and the right skills in the right place and properly configured, I think is probably the single biggest issue going forward.
Andrew, Deloitte worldwide has practices around all of these that you've mentioned now, so that's something that you guys can assist the thinking with.
Absolutely. I mean, as I said, we're a global firm. We're pretty much in every country. We touch pretty much every organization on the planet in some form or fashion. We've got, and just on this continent, I mean, we've got physical presence in pretty much every country.
Yeah, fantastic. We are so proud to be called a partner of yours. Andrew, to bring this to a close, what are you reading?
So I'm actually, if you believe it or not, I'm in the middle of Adrian Basson's book, Blessed by Bosasa. I've quite enjoyed these sort of state capture type books, Mandy Wiener's book and Peter Louis Myburg, I think his name.
The President's Men I read, that was very good as well.
So that's what I'm busy with at the moment.
Sure. Andrew, thank you very much for joining us. We would love to have you on again and see you out there at the clients.
Cool. No, thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much, Andrew.
Bye-bye.